Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. My name is Trainer Chip Ritchie, and I'm joined here as always by my co-host Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Been having a pretty good week so far, getting back into the swing of things with content. Also, a couple new shows coming out, Lord of the Rings show, Game of Thrones show. So I'm excited for TV, really excited for TV. I've been this excited for TV in a long time. So
Same, man.
I've been enjoying that as well. And then the content's been a little bit, I've been enjoying getting back into content. It's been a little bit stale because we're still in the same format that we've been in for a while. But Lost Origins is really soon. It's coming out a couple days. So going to be really excited to be trying that stuff out. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up, of course. And then of course, like the first regionals of the season is coming up as well already. So soon. Feels so soon, anyways. But what about you, Chip? How was your first week with the young lad?
First week was good. First week was tiring, that is for sure. Yeah, it's just a lot of waking up in the night to take care of things and change diapers, lots of changing diapers. I've been peed on many times. We've learned how to combat it though. As soon as the diaper comes off, wipe goes down over the crotch, a shield, protect ourselves a little bit, keep it off the walls and the floors, doing what we need to do out here, learning as young parents. But it's been fun. It's very sweet times. And yeah, it's cool to even just in a week see how he's like changed and like he's opening his eyes more, looking around. It takes some like several months, I think, to start really registering like things like locking onto people's faces and like so it's kind of just like blank stares looking all over the place, but he's a sweet guy and I love him and is definitely a weird time still. But also same, by the way, been watching some TV, some great shows. I've really enjoyed both House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power. Both shows have been very good so far. I have also been watching She-Hulk, which I cannot say the same for.
I actually thought that one's been like okay so far.
My
That
biggest
has been
issue
like
with the
okay.
show is like they're not doing anything. Like it doesn't feel like anything is happening. There's no like I don't have any of the problems that like I feel like a lot of people have like that I see complaining about it on Twitter and stuff. The CGI is not the best, but it's a lower budget production compared to the movies and stuff. Like I can get past some bad CGI if there's good storytelling, if there's something
Yeah.
compelling happening, if they're building to something. I don't know who the villain of this show is, and we're halfway through season one.
I mean, they maybe should have gone like it's like they're kind of more towards comedy. They maybe should have just gone full comedy instead of being like it
Yeah.
feels a little bit in between like going full comedy and then being a little bit more serious.
And I
But
get that She-Hulk is like meant to be a comedy and I'm fine with that. The problem is like I'm just so kind of tired of the MCU mantra of their form of comedy. It's just it's
yeah,
like if like Thor Love and Thunder had been this like serious like kind of more cutthroat Thor movie like the original ones. Obviously those weren't like the best, but it's like they went a little too heavy into the comedy with that movie, I think, compared to maybe Thor Ragnarok, right? It just didn't that movie Thor Love and Thunder didn't really know how to take itself seriously. So this show has just felt like too much of the MCU stuff. But anyway, we're not a movie and pop culture podcast. Not here to talk about those
not yet.
things. We're here to talk about the Pokemon trading card game, and there's plenty to talk about as well. We're going to be this week talking about the return of the EX mechanic. This was revealed at the World Championships. We did not talk about it last week because we had so much to cover, but we're going to give our thoughts kind of on what the future could hold for the Pokemon trading card game competitively this week. We'll be talking about that. Also, Lost Origins is releasing this Friday. It will be available later this week on PTCGO and I think PTCG Live for anyone who is still having to suffer through that. So we'll be talking about kind of some of our favorite cards coming up, things that we are excited for. Of course, we'll have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment. We are currently tied at 3 points apiece, so we will see if Azul can pull ahead. It is his turn to guess this week, my turn to pick a card, and then we will wrap up the show talking about Baltimore Regionals, which is just 2 weekends away. It's not this coming weekend, but next weekend, right? Like, that's pretty crazy. It's like right
Yeah.
around the corner. It feels like Worlds was not that long ago, and that's because it wasn't that long ago, and we're already hopping right back into the new season. So we'll talk about all those things and more this week. Azul, you ready to hop into things?
Yeah, let's kick it off. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does feel like we're right back in. I think it's like a little bit more for us because we pay attention to every regional championships. Some people look forward to the one or two or three that they go to throughout a season, but like I'm traveling to most of them. You're traveling to most of them as of late as well for casting, or I mean, even back when you weren't casting all of them, you were playing in some of them, right?
Hmm.
So for us, it feels like there's no off season.
And
There's
even
no
when I'm not
break.
if I wasn't casting or playing in them, like I'm keeping up with what's happening, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah. So let's talk EXs. I mean, we talked about them a little bit last time, like you said. Um, and they're coming back. And what does that mean really? Like I mentioned this on my stream this week. Like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I kind of had a rant on my stream where I was like, them being called EXs doesn't really mean anything. People's like current gripes with 3 prize Pokemon isn't a way isn't like an actual like way to gauge if a game is good or not just because something is worth 3 prize cards. Just we're getting EXs back doesn't mean the game will be good. Either the game is good or it's not. And I think a lot of people argue the game hasn't been great last 3-5 years. I don't know what time frame we really want to put on it. I liked tag teams. I enjoyed Zoroark formats before that. So I enjoyed those formats personally. Past that, I think it did get a little bit worse. Like as we start to get to the later half of tag teams and so on, VMAXs, V stars, just smaller VMAXs, I think. So it doesn't really either the game is built fundamentally well, and you could have a Pokemon worth 6 prize cards, or you could have Pokemon only worth 1 prize card, and either it plays well and it's fun and enjoyable and strategic and in depth, or it's not. It doesn't matter if they're called EXs. It doesn't matter if they're worth 3 prize cards, but more so than what EXs is my biggest thing with this whole release is what was kind of said in the video, the kind of the release trailer about EXs at the World Championships, where they said it almost seems like one of the things they mentioned is they want to focus on comebacks. But to me, it really felt like they were like saying like, yeah, we know you guys haven't really enjoyed the game the past couple years very much. We're gonna try and do better with EXs, is what I kind of got from that little trailer video.
Yeah, that was definitely a big standout to me as well. I mean, I'm personally really excited for this. My favorite formats, some of my favorite formats to play when I go back and play past Pokemon formats are ones that have this type of mechanic in them, where you have really strong basic multi-prize Pokemon and really strong evolution multi-prize Pokemon, kind of both mixed in and balanced with one another. Where you're not going to have basics. I mean, you're going to have basics that are pretty solid, but if you can build up to a stage 2, usually the stage 2 is going to outclass the basic. It's just a little bit easier to get working with the basic. So if they can do it right, similar to what they did with the GXs in the early Sun and Moon era, that 2017 NAIC format is considered by many one of the best modern formats. People love to play the Sun and Moon through Lost Thunder format, which I think that format has some really fun decks, but I do think it has a lot of problems in it. Like the stall and control decks are kind of just overpowered in that format.
Pretty good.
And then even back to like 2006, one of my favorite formats, probably my favorite format, is the 2006 World Championships format, which has this mechanic where you've got really strong basics and then evolutions as well to work around. So I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing what they do with this. It's not really, we don't know that much yet. You can't see in the trailer, they revealed parts of Koraidon and Miraidon EX. We don't know what types they are because they're kind of just grayed out. There's some missing words from the texts of their cards, but 3 cards we did see were Mimikyu EX, Lucario EX, and Magnezone EX. So we see a basic EX, a stage 1 EX, and then a stage 2 EX. And they did also say, it does say on the card, like Lucario EX evolves from Riolu. It does not evolve from Riolu EX, which is, I think, a key differentiator between this and then something just like the VSTAR VMAX mechanic.
Yeah. So it'll definitely be interesting. And yeah, I think even like the Lucario has like 260 HP. I don't know if we saw Magnezone's HP. So we got like a couple numbers to work with. I guess
I think.
at 330. We got Magnezone's attacks. Magnezone's attacks leaked a little bit.
We see everything.
Oh yeah,
from
Magnezone's 330. Yeah, so Magnezone. I think they even said in the trailer they want Magnezones to rival VMAXs, right? And that's like fine. I don't think like another thing that I think people get wrong. Like I kind of talked just about like things being worth 3 prize cards isn't a bad thing. It's just bad if the game is bad, right? So if 3 prize just because something is worth 3 prize cards and the game feels bad, that's just the game feeling bad. It doesn't matter that it was worth 3 prize cards. Like, the numbers could be twice as big, right? Look at Yu-Gi-Oh numbers. Like, you could just like bring you like Yu-Gi-Oh cards have like, I don't know, thousands of HP and thousands of damage. Like, you could just bring that down to hundreds and tens, right? And it would be the exact same thing, right? So it's just kind of like Pokemon is built from the tens, and there was a power creep build up to this point, but they could also just all of a sudden decide one day to make things in the thousands, and that would it wouldn't change anything. Either the game is good or the game is bad, right? And it's just poor game design versus, oh, they chose to make 3 prize Pokemon, or they chose to bring back 2 prizes, or they gave this stuff this much HP or this much damage. That's not why the game is bad. It's like more of a fundamentally flawed thing in the game's design point at that period in time.
I think the problem with 3 prize Pokemon doesn't come from the fact that they give up half. I think a common complaint is that, okay, one VMAX knockout is half of the game over, right?
Yeah,
If I KO one VMAX or a tag team, that means that I'm halfway to completing this game. The issue isn't that that is the case, because if you were 3-hit KO or 4-hit KOing those Pokemon, your game is still lasting many turns,
yeah,
and there's tons of different things you can do between that first attack into a VMAX or a tag team and then the final KO attack. The problem becomes that these Pokemon are usually easily one hit KO'd by counter cards in the formats. And that is really where I think the game has had flaws in the past couple of years, is like every single set, it feels like we're getting a counter to what the big bad was of the last set, you know?
yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly, for sure. And I mean, we'll see where they go from here with the X's. And it sounds like they, like I said, like it sounds like they're trying to make things better than it has been. And it sounds like they're very much listening to the players, which is a good thing. We've been seeing more and more of that from Pokemon um, in general. And I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, it could be good. It could be worse than ADPization. We'll have to we'll have to wait. We hope not. We hope not. We hope
I've got
nothing is
high
ever
hopes
worse than
for
ADPization.
I've got high hopes for where we're headed here,
I do
because
too.
it does seem like it's. I mean, people look at Magnezone and see 330 hit points and they think, "Wow, that is a lot." But you got to remember, it's a stage 2 Pokemon and its attacks. You know, the first one being Energy Crush. It deals damage based on how many energy your opponent has on the field, so they can control that damage output. Make sure you're playing around being one hit KO'd, and then its second attack does 220 damage. So it's 2-hit KOing like opposing 330 HP Pokemon, but you're not talking about just responding to big, one hit knockout after one hit knockout. So I'm interested to see where they go with it. Something you mentioned, Azul, was the fact that in the release of this video, they talked about comebacks being a important part of
Yep.
this new block. And I think that has been a common problem that people have with the game currently, where a lot of games last 4 to 5 turns, it feels like, and usually who is winning the game is decided in the first 2 turns. Now, I don't think that this current format is quite that bad. I think that that was more so the case like 3 or 4 sets ago, probably. Maybe like Fusion to Strike, Evolving Skies time frame. It really felt like that was a little bit more the case, and even farther back to the first Sword and Shield on format, um, like before Battle Styles and stuff came out, or I think maybe it was around that time frame. I can't remember exactly. Shadow Rider, like Urshifu format. It felt like things kind
Yeah.
of went pretty quickly. So yeah, I think that comebacks coming into the game is a good sign. Now, and we're not without comebacks at the moment. Roxanne and Marnie are both pretty powerful cards, but compared to other comeback mechanic cards that we've had in the past, where do you kind of feel like, in your opinion, since you're someone who's competed at the highest level in multiple of these formats, do you have kind of an opinion on some of your favorite comeback mechanic cards? We've seen things like Ace Trainer, Marnie, Roxanne, and the like.
I mean, I think the top two for me, and I think they were both like thinking back on it, like whenever people talk about reprinting, reprinting A Train and reprinting Reset Stamp, reprinting N. I mean, I think N and Reset Stamp are the top two. I didn't play back when Admin was a card, so I don't know how impactful Admin was for making comebacks.
It was
Or
very impactful.
so yeah, I played like a lot of old decks with Admin, but I've
Yes.
never like played the format, so that's like definitely and like even when I think back to like 2012 when N first came out, or I think it was around 2012. I don't even like back then. I don't remember N being that impactful. It was just like you played it, but usually your opponent drew the junk arm or the catcher, and it didn't really matter if I remember correctly. And that was like way more like Mewtwo war based, so it was like pretty easy to get a return knockout on your opponent's Mewtwo. You didn't need that much, even if they end you to two. So I don't remember, and we had portrait and stuff. Yeah, I don't even remember N being that impactful back then. But I think N and Reset Stamp, like it doesn't really matter which one. I feel like they were both very, very powerful as comeback cards, but they did it both very well. I feel like, and I feel like you maybe wouldn't want to. You don't just want to reprint a Reset Stamp or an N in any format because I feel like the cards were made pretty well for the formats that they were in for the most part. So I mean, if they reprinted one of those into the new format and then design like it'd be a pretty impactful card on any format you printed into. Design the cards accordingly around that existing. I mean, one of those would be fine, but something coming out with something new would also be fine as well. So, yeah, I mean, just some cards I think like that level of impact would be good. I like a reset stamp or like an N as an option in the format. Roxanne is good, but it's really hard to be able to consistently utilize it and play towards it when you're behind if you're not playing an Intellion deck, which kind of sucks.
I think part of what makes in and admin such strong cards is the fact that early game they're just consistency, right? Early
Yeah.
on, like if you play 3 or 4 in your deck, you can just slap an in down, shuffle your hand in, draw 6 cards. Like that's a pretty good effect on a supporter. We've seen it before with Cynthia. It was a very highly played supporter card whenever that existed. And then as the game goes on, can at certain stages become much more powerful or even sometimes detrimental if you in yourself at a bad time potentially. So it can like there's definitely a skill kind of area to navigate there. But the last time in was printed was in Fates Collide, which was back in 2014. And I think the game designers obviously know that in is a very good card because they printed it several times, right? It was printed
Yeah.
originally in black and white and then it came out a couple more times in the released again in the black white era. It was printed twice and then printed once again in the X and Y era, but they haven't printed it or something similar to it again. They've always tried to adapt and change it because I think N was a little maybe in their mind too strong, and I can
Yeah.
understand that uh idea because it's almost like, do you want players to be able to take this card and have it fulfill two roles in the deck, right? It fulfills the comeback option and a consistency option at the same time. Or do you want to force players to have a little bit more decision making when it comes to those things? And so that's why we saw Reset Stamp was kind of the next iteration where it's an item card and it only affects your opponent. So it doesn't take your supporter for the turn, but it's going to be a pretty much useless card for you until halfway to the end game of your match taking place. And then,
Yeah.
whenever Sword and Shield came out, we saw Marnie be printed. And, and they've reprinted other disruption cards as well. Like Judge has been printed
Judge, yeah.
again several times now, where, maybe they were trying to say, like, hey, maybe let this be your disruption option. It's not a very strong draw card. It does see you a new hand, but it's not very it's not like the strongest disruption and it's also not the strongest draw, so like maybe this is the middle ground that they want players to land on. And we've had formats before where Judge has been very good. Back in like 2010 it was a pretty highly played card. um so then we move on to Marnie, and then Marnie I think is just almost stronger than in some aspects because in can lock
Yeah.
your opponent out of the game in the late game, but they've at least gotten to play a game up to that point.
Yeah.
Marnie can just lock you out of the game from the beginning because your opponent goes second, plays Marnie, and then you get 4 useless cards because you've had no time to go through your deck or get set up because you couldn't play
Yeah.
supporter on turn 1.
Yeah.
And
And I think with
then
the
the iteration
oh,
from that finally ends up with where we're at now, kind of with Roxanne. But what we've seen from players, even though it's only been out for about 3 months now in the West, it's been out for a little bit longer over in Japan. What we've kind of seen now is that the only decks that are really adopting it successfully are Intellion decks that can search that specific card out at that one turn that you want to play it. And they're only playing it as a one of. So does it really function as a good comeback card for the format whenever it's only fitting that role in like one specific deck engine? I don't really think so, because even like you played one copy of Roxanne in your NAIC winning list, but none of the Flying Pikachus that did well at Worlds chose to play the card. And I think for the reason of like, it's just this one of, you can't search it out when you need to. You'd rather have that consistency of just that extra boss's orders or that extra Marnie in your deck, right?
yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think now that we've had Marnie, when only having previously judged before, I think we can definitely like draw a distinction between disruption card and comeback card. Like N,
Sure.
I guess N could be classified as both, but I think Judge and Marnie are definitely disruption cards, not really comeback cards, right? Like you're
Right, right,
not
right.
gonna Marnie your opponent to four and be like, "I've done it." There's no way they draw their one card combo, right? Like the one card they need, right? Like no one thinks that they're like, "Please don't draw the card you need," right? But like you know, but when you play N or reset stamp to one or two, you know, you're a little bit more confident, or even Roxanne to two, right? So yeah, I think like those are just Judge and Marnie are disruption cards just for how the game flows and the amount of cards you need on average on turn to pull off a reasonable play. Judge and Marnie on average are not going to prevent your opponent from potentially executing their optimal or best game plan for the turn. You know, finding their boss's orders, finding their Roxanne, whatever. But then you have cards like N, Roxanne, Reset Stamp that are more so comeback cards. I guess you can make an argument N is everything. Um, which maybe that's why
And I
we'll
think
maybe never
that
see
might
something like
be
N
why
again.
they haven't printed it again since Fates
Yeah,
Collide in 2014
it's
because
too good.
it's a card that fits so many different roles. And so I would be really surprised if they go back to that after all this time. But the last what like 6 years of the game since 2014, they've tried all these different no, wow, 8 years. 2014 was
Yeah.
In came out Fates Collide was 2016. Okay, that's where the yeah.
Oh, okay. I
My
mean, still
bad.
6
Not
years.
2014, 26. So yes, 6 years. So the last 6 years of the game, they've tried all these different things, but nobody's really committed to them in their decks like in I guess with like as far as comebacks go. Um a lot of decks would play one or two reset stamps, but not even every single
Yeah,
deck would play reset stamp whenever it was legal,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, that's best. Like, I think you do want some decks to, and maybe that's why N shouldn't come back. Because I think it's best when some decks are like, no, I don't want to have a come. I'm not going to play a comeback card. I guess we did see some decks play less N,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that if we went back, there would be some decks that were decent that played no N. I mean, I would like N back. I'm a big fan of it because it does when you only have 60 cards to make a deck with, being able to have something like N obviously is powerful, but it's powerful for everyone. It's not like only you're using the card, right? Your opponent also plays four, and it does cover so many roles, but it also ups the consistency of your deck by a ton because you have a consistency card, a disruption card, and a comeback card all in the same card, which means you have more space to get creative with the rest of your deck and the rest of your list to, just tackle the current meta or a matchup or a format, and you don't have to commit as much space to just being straightforward consistent or to playing reset stamps and researches and so on and so forth. Like you just have that one card creates so much more flexibility in your list because it is, it covers so many different situations. So I don't know. I kind of like it for that reason as well, though. From like I mean, I really liked that. Every format that had in it, I enjoyed. So I
You
I
like
wouldn't mind for N to
2012?
come back.
That's a favorite format of yours, 2012?
What one was that? What was played back in 2012? I
It's
forget.
like just Darkrai. It was Darkrai the format.
Oh, I mean that format
And
was
then
like
Mewtwo a
okay.
little bit.
Okay, I like N. I like the second printing of N. That form when because we had a period where there was no N for a little while, but after that, the second printing of
Or
N is was the better time for N, I think.
in X and Y whenever it came back out
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
X and
yeah.
Y. Yeah.
That's that on was pretty good for to have N around
Yeah,
as a card. I felt like it.
2016 Vespiquen Vileplume and
Yeah,
Trevenant and Seismitoad. Such a fun format for sure. Night
those were
March. I
we
agree
had
though.
N. We had N.
Well, we'll see what comeback mechanic means for them. Will it just be an N reprint? Will it be a rehashing of one of these other cards that have come out over the years? Even some, I mean, and comeback doesn't necessarily mean, there is like that distinction between comeback and disruption, right?
Yeah,
Where you can come back by disrupting your opponent, but you can also come back by getting really key pieces out of your deck. Some other popular comeback cards that would not, fall into this category would be something like Teammates or Twins or like something similar right now. We have Raihan. Like those all kind of qualify as comeback cards,
yeah.
though
Also,
they.
just
Mhm.
potentially getting out your stage two. That could be where you start to make a comeback, right? Which would be we haven't seen that kind of happen in a while, but that could be, your turning point where you get out your stage two or a two stage twos or a stage one with a stage two. Rare candy out of stage two and all of a sudden you're winning the game probably isn't great. That doesn't really scream comeback, but like, if you got to set up that bigger board, and once you finally get there, that's when you can start to lock your opponent out of options and take over. That could be maybe what we see more of, which I like to see a mix of that plus, some hand disruption.
So definitely a lot of exciting things in the future. Scarlet and Violet's first TCG set will be early 2023, and that will also be when the rotation of the Pokemon TCG format happens. So we will lose the D block and go to E block onwards, which would be battle styles onwards. So
Is that
interesting.
100% confirmed? Because like I had like a discussion like, what if they just rotated EX? Like if they came out with like huge EX set, 400 cards, and then just were just like, all right, it's EX on. Or is it already confirmed that we're gonna lose D block and keep? Because they did kind of like preface the video with like the new standard, right? Like when they
Mhm.
went to with the trailer video. So I don't know. I had that discussion with a couple people. I think that would be super sick because that means they put like a lot of time and effort into this like next set coming up. That would be really cool. We just wouldn't have to deal with any of this
Here's the
stuff anymore.
information they put out pre-worlds. It's a post on the website. It says standard format rotation information. For the last few years, the Pokemon TCG standard format rotation has occurred in either August or September. However, the next rotation will not occur until early 2023. This means that cards with the D regulation mark can be used at the 2022 Pokemon TCG World Championships. The newest expansion that will be legal for play at this event will be the Pokemon Go expansion. The exact date for the next Pokemon TCG standard format rotation will be announced later. And as stated in the 2022 TCG Championship Series season format rotation article, when the next rotation occurs, all cards with the deregulation mark will be removed from the standard format.
So it is possible because you could remove the D's and the E's and the F's at the same time.
I don't think that's what they're gonna do, but sure, it's possible. We
But they would
could just
definitely
rotate
wouldn't.
this. We could just rotate to Scarlet and Violet on. Honestly, what
Yeah,
could
that's what I'm
happen is that
saying.
the new Scarlet and Violet set comes out, and they say, "Okay, guys, here you go. 4 of these cards are legal, and that has to make up your entire deck. The rest has to be basic energies." They could say that. They could. They could, Azul. They could.
I'm saying like they definitely wouldn't tell us that now, so they did have to. They could have definitely worded it better, so it's less. That it probably is the way you think it's going to be. But I'm just saying it would be cool if. I think that would be cool,
Sure.
but it's probably not going to happen.
Probably not.
All right. All right. I think that's it for EXs. So let's move on. Lost Origins coming out this week
That's right.
on Thursday. I actually thought like even just a couple days ago, I thought it was next week. So I'm actually super glad that it is this week. Thursday this week, it'll be available on PTCGO. The set officially releases on Friday. For anyone who's curious, because I get this question in my chat all the time, so I may as well put the information out there. If you want to get packs on the PTCGO store with your coins, that you'll be able to do on Friday as well. It's always the day after it releases on PTCGO, but you can input your code cards and stuff on Thursday. So it releases Thursday, new set drops. I've actually already had the chance to open up some product that Pokemon sent me. Sent me a couple ETBs and a couple build and battles, and I don't know. I thought I pulled pretty well. Didn't get any V stars for Giratina. I think I got a Zoroark. I think I got a Zoroark V Star. I got a gold Pikachu, which looks super sick actually. The gold and black cards are super sick
Big
actually.
peak.
Yeah, they should just like do away with rainbows completely and make the gold and black cards like the new rainbow rare slot. I would maybe even go out of my way to play those. I play minimum rarity pretty much 100% of the time, unless I like pull a card that's like a alt art, and then I just don't buy another non alt art, and then I play it. Yeah, those sick. The cards are sick. The Lost Zone is back, and there's quite a few cards that work with it. I'm pretty excited for it. Chip, have you taken a look at the Lost Zone yet?
I have, and I'm really interested in what exactly is. So like this, the Lost Zone mechanic is something that's been around in the game since I think it was initially introduced in like 2011 timeframe, something like that. Call of Legends, that would have been the first time, right? I think so. Ever since
Yeah.
then, it has come and gone many times over the years, and each time it comes back, it feels like they've found kind of a new way to interact with the Lost Zone. So whenever it came back around the time frame of like Ultra Prism, whenever Prism Stars came out, the only way you could really interact with it was that Prism Star cards would go to the Lost Zone instead of the discard pile. And then Lost Thunder came out, and one of the big things with it was really just Lost March was kind of the main thing. And it was like, if you just get a bunch of Pokemon in the Lost Zone, you can do a ton of damage. And we had Lost Splendor as like a turbo item card. Lost March never really lived up to much. I think it got top 8 at like one regionals.
Maybe.
Yeah, and it was like kind of always like one of those decks that you just went back to play for fun, but was never the strongest or most competitive. Now, this time coming back with the Lost Zone for the first time, you are really just trying to dump a bunch of cards in the Lost Zone, and then that in turn will activate and allow you to be able to play other cards in your deck, which I think is really interesting. Some really powerful stuff out there. Obviously, a lot of people have talked plenty about Giratina V-Star, which just does 280 damage. Really strong if you can get it powered up. And the main way to power it up is going to be that new Mirage Gate item card, which you can only play if you have 7 cards in the Lost Zone. But if you get to 7 cards in the Lost Zone, you get to search your deck for 2 different types of basic energy and attach them to one of your Pokemon. Really powerful energy acceleration. Reminds me of Beast Ring. I think that's a pretty obvious comparison there. But they're similar but quite different at the same time. You know what I mean? It's an item
Yeah.
that pulls energy out of the deck that can only be played at certain points in the game. But one of them, it's like based on what your opponent has done, and one of them, it is based on what you have done, which is by
Yeah.
getting a bunch of your cards in the Lost Zone.
And you can, with Mirage Gate, it seems like people can build decks that make it happen, turn 1, as opposed to your
Right.
opponent having some control of what's going on.
Right.
And yeah, Giratina, 280 damage. It's funny because like when you said that, I was like, when most cards come out, it's like, oh, you can get up to 280 damage with this and this, and Giratina's like, no,
It just
280 damage.
doesn't.
Yeah, with a choice belt and a Leon, maybe a quick shooting. You too can do 280 damage. Giratina's like, I just do 280 damage. It doesn't seem like it is gonna be the next Palkia, which I'm very thankful for. I don't think it's gonna be terrible. Maybe it's a tier 1 deck, maybe it's a tier 2 deck, but it doesn't seem it's gonna be like the next takeover card. Like we've kind of had a Mew VMAX into Arceus into Palkia. I think Giratina and Zoroark not quite on that power level, which I think is a good thing. Another thing I'll just say on the Lost Zone is I wish the Lost Zone would stop leaving. I just like hate it when they keep rotating mechanics out. The one I always talk about is ancient traits. I love ancient traits. I wish they had stayed in the game since they were a thing. So I would like the Lost Zone to be a little bit more consistently in the game and not be like, these like, 3 or 4 year gaps in between like major Lost Zone interactions. Like
Yeah.
maybe like 1 or 2 sets a year there is like something built around the Lost Zone. It doesn't always have to be good. Just like, and I feel like we are just going to lose. Like this is the biggest the Lost Zone has ever been with this set release for sure. It's like a whole engine built around the Lost Zone for multiple different decks that can abuse it and utilize it. And I feel like we're just going to not see anything with the Lost Zone after this set, probably for sure. Maybe in the next set, but like going into the EX era in the next year, we're not going to. None of that probably is going to work with the Lost Zone, unfortunately.
So I do think the Lost Zone stuff is going to be really good, and the fact that you can be so turbo with it is really strong. And I think the main, factor in that is the Comfy from Lost Origin, which has, I think it's like the flower picking ability. Lets you look at the flower picking. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them into your hand, and put the other card in the Lost Zone. So through scoop up nets and switches, escape ropes, kind of similar to that old Jirachi Stellar Wish engine almost, you can get, 3, 4, even more potentially Lost Zone cards just from Comfies on turn 1. And that's not even counting potentially playing a supporter like Chorus's Experiment or something like that. In order to put more cards in Lost Zone, maybe using something like the Stage 1 Banette to put some cards in the Lost Zone. There's lots of different ways to dump cards in there so that you can power up things like Mirage Gate and even Fantina potentially, which is another decent card coming from the set.
Yeah, so a lot of ways to interact with it. Thankfully, a lot of different. I mean, I think like the Comfy Mirage Gate that's going to be an engine, right, for a lot of different decks. I think that just is, and now it's just going to be an engine. The Mirage Gate Comfy engine will be pretty good. A lot of different decks. And then yeah, like you said, the Fantina possibly working out with the Gudra. One of my this is not like one of my favorite cards to come out of the set. But one I wanted to talk about was Drapion V. Because the amount of people I've been seeing saying that Drapion V won't do anything to Mew is, I think, absurd. I think Drapion V is the counter for Mew. For anyone who doesn't know, Drapion V, basic Pokemon. The ability says for each Rapid Strike, Single Strike, Fusion, Rapid Strike, Single Strike, Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. I think it's those three. Is there one more? That's all the strikes, right?
Yes, that is all
Um,
of the strikes.
its
Each of your
attack does
opponents of those
each
type
of
of
your
Pokemon.
opponents Rapid, Single Strike, Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. The attack costs one colorless less, and the attack is 4 colorless for 180 damage, and then you do 60 to one of your own Pokemon. So you one hit KO. What's it called? It's Dark type. You want to KO Mew VMAX for nothing. You didn't
It
have to do
actually does
anything.
190 damage, which is
Oh,
actually,
190.
I mean, that's a key distinction though,
Yeah, it's Genesect.
because yeah, well, no, because it with a choice belt and one energy, if your opponent puts 3 Sobbles in play, it KOs it KOs Origin Form, Palkia V, and Arceus
Arceus,
V
yeah.
for one energy card. I think
Yes, you
that's the
gotta be
main
careful.
reason Drapion is good, not just as a Mew VMAX counter, but because it can also exist and do solid against these other decks because of how popular that Intellion engine is right now.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, if Mew just dies off, then Drapion won't be good. But if Mew's good, Drapion will 100%. It just allows you to so aggressively like win the prize trade against Mew. You can go from like turn 2 KO a Meloetta into nuke a Mew into boss KO Genesect to win the game now. Like Mightyena came out, but it was a stage 1. The format's really fast. You really want to commit a 2/2 slot to your deck. Not really, because everyone talked about Mightyena being the Mew killer, but I think Drapion is. There's no way. Like this is such an absurd amount of power to utilize in a matchup that if it is still a tier 1 popular deck, a lot of decks are going to be able to build around now and be like, well, my Mew matchup sucks. Not anymore. It's at least 50-50, or you can even make it better. You could just use 3 Drapions in a row and just KO 3 Fusion Strike Pokemon in a row or something possibly. So, yeah, definitely gonna be a strong one. I think definitely could have a big effect on the meta and kind of shutting Mew out for good if it's not already shut out.
Yeah, I do think Drapion is definitely going to be a pretty solid card. I think it would fit well into a lot of these like Intellion engine decks, something like a countery type deck almost, something similar to what Ian Robb won the Indianapolis Regionals with, which was like an Arceus deck that had the Galarian Zapdos and then the Galarian Moltres and all those counter options in it. Drapion just kind of fits naturally into something like that. Maybe is a one. I mean, and the fact we talked about this whenever this card got revealed, just how stupid it is that this card can just for one deck slot do so
No
much for
energy.
you. Yes, no energy, one deck slot.
That's yeah,
It's ridiculous.
the basic search it with quick ball.
Yep.
Insane.
Very strong card. One that I wanted to talk about a little bit, and I'm actually kind of we've talked about this a little bit, you and I, and we've maybe talked about this on the cast before, but that's Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. And I think that it just, on paper, to me, seems impossible that this card is not just, like, amazing and top tier, because it just does so much damage for one energy
Yeah.
attachment, can knock anything in the format out. It's like kind of high maintenance, but not really, because you have the consistency built in of its V-Star power, Phantom Star to draw a bunch of cards, discard your hand, of course, get Gengars in the discard pile. Like, there is a pretty clear-cut engine for this card and deck to exist, but it's been out for a while in Japan, and it really has not done that well, which has been so surprising for me to see.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I think it's been out in Japan for a while. And yeah, even though I don't follow the results from Japan tournaments too much, you usually know a deck is good in Japan when just a bunch of I just see a bunch of tweets from different Twitter accounts of lists from Japanese players, and I've been seeing the Giratina ones pop up recently. The Lost Zone builds with Giratina recently pop up on my on my Twitter, but I've yet to see a Zoroark build pop up on the Twitter feed since it's been out. So it's usually a decent indication that a card is just not good. If the Japanese lists are not popping up on the Twitter feed, the card's probably not great. And when I do look at the card and look at like what else is good in the format, it is a little bit more high maintenance, it seems.
Sure.
And then the Palkia matchup just seems bad, to be honest. You're filling your bench and damaging your own Pokemon. That you can't match up well into it. Maybe if you just go first, you just can kind of keep pace. I guess that would be your one hope, right? But besides that, it feels like it might just be too tough if Palkia is still as strong as it has been.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for that matchup, it really is the coin flip, right? It's like who goes first and is able to take the 2 prize knockout right away, And if you can
Yeah.
do that as the Zoroark player, go first and take the knockout, stream them together, you're gonna be fine. But if you're the Palkia player, and maybe that's where the matchup disparity comes in, is the fact that Palkia is maybe a little bit more consistent, where it's gonna go first and it's gonna do that 90% of the time, whereas Zoroark, when it goes first, it's gonna do that 80% of the time, something like that, right?
Yeah. That might be the what's it called? The break difference. But speaking of less good cards coming out of this set. And I've been actually hype about this card for a while, and I think a lot of people have because a lot of people loved Grand Bull back in the day. The Hisuian Arcanine is coming out, and for it's what stage 1, 130 HP for 0 energy cost, low price of 0. Arcanine does 10 damage plus 150 if you have 0 cards in your hand. If anyone remembers Grand Bull, I forget Grand Bull was hitting for like 160, I believe, if I remember correctly. Was like if you had 0 cards in your hand. So
I think it
throwback
was
to the
130, actually.
was it? Well, I thought you
Yeah.
could like one hit KO a Zoroark if you had like a choice belt. Maybe it's a Kukui as well. I
Oh,
thought if you had
it
choice belt
was it
plus like
was
2 shrine.
160. It was
Yeah.
160.
Because choice belt plus a couple shrine pings KO to Zoroark. But yeah, I'm super hyped to try out Arcanine. Arcanine's be super sick. I don't know if it'll be any good, but attacking for free for that much damage, like you're 2 hit KOing everything in the format, and you're 1 hit KOing like any relevant one prizer as well. So maybe you can keep up, go first, turn to attack with the Arcanine. And if you run it with Zoroark, which seems like a pretty reasonable thing to run it with, you get the Slowbro involved. You do have to play a couple energy to get you be able to attack with Slowbro, but I don't know, maybe Slowbro can finally see some see the light of day with that one. But yeah, I'm excited to try out the Arcanine. Something new, something cool. A lot of cool cards to come out of this set. Like I think the Comfy Mirage Gate engine, though, that's going to be the big game changer. There's going to be open up a ton of different archetypes with that engine. I think that's just going to be a huge change in the meta. But a lot of other cool stuff to try out as well, besides just the big Lost Zone cards.
Yeah, I think Arcanine is super cool. I think compared to Granbull, there's a few things that kind of the main thing that it's missing that Granbull had was a Rangaroo, right? A
Yeah,
basic Pokemon that could refill your hand because
got
you're
Venusaur,
yes, sure,
maybe.
Radiant Venusaur, but that's a one of, right? And
Yeah,
Rangaroo, you had a few of them. Obviously, you could also pair this with Bibro, but then you're adding multiple stage ones into a single deck, right? Which makes it a little bit more clunky. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think Arcanine definitely could be good. I mean, we've got Quick Ball in the format. That's something Granbull did not have access to, so that's a big plus for this deck. We've got Ultra Ball in the format. Very good for a deck like this. You don't need any energy cards, which is something Granbull needed, right? You don't have to play any energy cards. And this is a fighting type, which is a pretty good type to be
yeah,
in the Pokemon TCG pretty much always. It's always
yeah.
pretty decent to be a
Never
fighting
hurts.
type, it feels like. The fact that you can one hit KO Arceus V-Star, one of the most powerful and popular Pokemon in the format, if they don't get their Dunsparce down, is a pretty good upside. And also, can KO those Zoroarks running around if if it does end up being decent. Azul's laughing at me for some reason, man. The card's good,
Yeah, yeah.
trust me.
They've done Spurs as well, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, if it
Yes,
does end up
yes.
being good, we'll see. We'll see if the Zoroark cuts it or not. Yeah, not sold on that one yet, but you seem to be a little bit more of a fan.
Yeah, the Arcanine, I'm a fan of. I'm definitely gonna try it out as well. Decks like this are just a bunch of fun. I'm looking forward to trying it out. But those are just a couple of our favorite cards from the set. Once we kind of next week, I think next week we'll focus a lot on Baltimore since it'll be the following weekend. But we'll have had a chance, at least a few days, to get our hands on and test the format out a little bit, test with the
Yep.
new Lost Origin cards. So we'll kind of give some more in depth thoughts on what our favorites are. Looking forward to it coming out this weekend. And from there, Azul, I think it is time for us to move on to everyone's favorite segment. Guess that flavor text, where we pick a card from the Pokemon TCG, read that fun little bit of text down in the bottom corner, and see if the other host can guess what card, what Pokemon we are talking about. You, of course, do have access to 3 lifelines. If you get the card correct without using any of your lifelines, you get 4 points. And then for each lifeline, you lose a point. Of course, the 3 lifelines being what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and then read an attack name. Have the co host read an attack name. And it is my turn this week to pick a card for Azul, which I have done. I'm going to just pull it up so I can read it properly. And Azul, are you ready, my friend?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Oh, and for what it's worth, we are tied at 3-3. So if Azul gets any points this week, he would jump into the lead. Here we go. Feared and loathed by many, it is believed to bring misfortune to all those who see it at night.
Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah, I have no clue. Feared and loathed by many. It brings misfortune to all those who see it at night.
It is believed to bring
It is
misfortune to
believed.
all those who see it at night.
So this definitely makes me think it's some time of ghost Pokemon. That's the only kind of Pokemon that I would think of that this would kind of work for. Uh, in terms of the flavor text so far, I can't really think. So I definitely need to use something here. So I'm gonna go with. I need some help. I have no clue at all, so I don't want to guess. Like, I'm actually gonna start with set. What set is this card from?
This card is from Undaunted, a Heart Gold Soul Silver set.
Art Gold Soul Silver. I have that. So that helped me very little. Heart Gold Soul Silver. What set is that? Is that like in the run of So Heart Gold Soul Silver.
I think it is Unleashed, Triumphant, Undaunted, I believe. I think it's the last one. I will double check though.
Okay, so Undaunted. I'm pretty sure the only like now I'm thinking like for some reason I was thinking about Ghost Pokemon.
It is Unleashed, Undaunted, then Triumphant. So base Heart Goes to Silver base, then Unleashed, then Undaunted, then Triumphant,
Okay.
then Call of Legends.
So I'm thinking Undaunted. I think that for some reason I'm thinking that there was a lot of dark Pokemon. Like I think Umbreon. I think there's an Umbreon from Heart Gold Silver Undaunted. I could be wrong about that. Now I'm thinking about like Mightyena for some reason. So let's get the stage of the Pokemon.
Well, both of those Pokemon are stage ones, but this Pokemon is a basic.
All right, so now I have no clue. That's what I was thinking about as far as Pokemon goes so far from Undaunted plus the flavor text. Give me the flavor text one more time.
Feared and loathed by many, it is believed to bring misfortune to all those who see it at night.
All right, so give me an attack name as well. Let's use all the lifelines.
Astonish.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna go with. I don't know why I thought of this. There's so many Pokemon with Astonish. I'm gonna go with. I'm forgetting the name of the Pokemon. Mischievous.
Oh, that is incorrect. It
Uh,
is Murkrow from
oh,
Undaunted.
it was a dark Pokemon.
I've actually got one right here. The reason I chose it this week, I've been organizing cards, just happened to have one. I was like, you know what? Let's go with this guy.
I was getting like closer. I was like
You
getting closer
were.
onto the
You
right
started
track.
talking about dark Pokemon. I was like, yes, he can get it. But no.
Undaunted helped me a little bit. I was like, I'm pretty sure there was a decent amount of dark Pokemon in that set. I like remember that.
And
yeah.
see, you've always talked about how that lifeline is useless to you, and it helped you this time. It like it got you on the right track. You didn't end up at the finish line, but it put you on the right track at least, right?
Yeah, put me on the right track, but wasn't quite good enough. Stay tied this week at 3-3. All right. Last thing to talk about this week, regionals. Baltimore Regionals is this weekend. I guess like kind of going off of a little bit of our discussion last week about registration fees. Peoria Regionals registration has happened since we last talked about it, and it was $66 and some cents. So 66, 67, whatever. So cheaper than Baltimore Regionals, not by that much. And that's kind of been
saving $3. You're
That's
definitely
been-
spending that $3 to get to the middle of nowhere, Peoria, Illinois, bro.
So
or
that's been a
Indiana. I don't
big-
even know is it Illinois, Indiana, whatever state it's in.
Illinois.
Okay.
So that's been a big talking point, right? It has just been registration fees higher than they have been in the past by quite a bit. And I think the discussion has a little bit shifted from just pure outrage to, okay, we're still not overly as upset, but we'd like to know where this money is going. Could you send us a breakdown? Could you send us the bill, the receipts? We want the receipts. That's kind of what the discussion has changed to in the Pokemon community. I think me and you were pretty open to the fact that regionals just cost more, right? Like in the U.S., like, and especially when you compare it to other countries, I think the U.S. is just more expensive with these kind of things, maybe as well. Like we talked about with the regionals in Latin America and Brazil was like $24 USD.
Australia is the same.
Yeah, Australia is the same. Over here in the US, $70. And I think another big contention for pushback from players that has kind of maintained has been, why are juniors and seniors paying the same as masters? Which I do agree with. They're playing less tournament for almost always less prize payout, right? So
Yes.
I think even if they can justify the $70 for Masters players, the juniors, the 50 juniors and 50 seniors compared to the 1,000 Masters, like you can cut them a break, give it to them for like 40 bucks, 30 bucks, right? Like I think we could all agree on that. And I would love to see, I think these tournament organizers retroactively pay back the entry fees for the juniors and seniors. I think that seems if they, yeah, if there's 40 juniors, 40 seniors, and 1,000 masters, I think they can be coming in at a little, just based on those numbers, they could be coming in at a little bit less. But I think they're playing less tournament for less prize money. I think they could also be cut a break on the entry fee for sure.
Yeah, I think part of the issue here is that, well, first off, we don't know the invite structure yet. We don't know how many
Yep.
points are needed, and we don't even know 100% what points will be paid out for regionals and stuff. Now, it's pretty safe to assume
Or
that
I
it'll
guess
be the
prize payout, to
same.
be honest,
Yeah, yeah, we just don't have confirmation of those things, but it's pretty safe to assume it would be the same as in previous years.
or more.
People who got points at the London Open got the same amount of points as they would for any special event or regionals. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that the points at least would be the same, and I think that hopefully it's. I don't want to even say this because, like, who knows, man. I would just hope that there's no shot that the pricing is less than what it has been in previous years. It should at minimum be the same.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
there would be that's when I think it's definitely fair to be outraged. You're charging more for the entry fee. You're getting 1,000 players. You're getting 1,000 Masters TCG players to show up to your event. If they came forward and were like, oh, and by the way, you get $1,000 if you win, that would be definitely reason for outrage, I think.
So, but to my point, so the part of the issue here is the fact that we don't have these local events, and even though we don't know what the point structure looks like, Worlds is in Japan, right? And you're gonna need to play for an invite. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna want an invite if you want to go to Worlds in Japan. Like, you could go as a spectator without, but like most of these people who are competing at this event, they're gonna be trying to play for a Worlds invite, whether or not they plan to go, whatever it is. They want their Worlds invite, um, and so whenever there's no other path to Worlds through locals or anything like that, there's no other types of events announced. Which we haven't talked about this yet, but locals did get announced that they will be coming back, cups and challenges, in early 2023 or sometime in 2023 is all they said. But anyway, whenever there's only one path and you can set whatever price you want for that path, and people have to pay it if they want to. If they want that thing, if they want a Worlds invite, they have to pay this $70 to go play in a regionals. Like, they could make it whatever number they wanted to, and people just have no choice. Which I think is
Yeah,
probably where part of the issue comes in, is like people feel handicapped or handcuffed, I think is the word I should go for. Like,
hopeless.
yeah, like they this is the only thing they can do is pay this $70. Like, it's like, it sucks, but I have to do it. I want my Worlds invite. This is my only option.
Yeah, we showing that we love the game and we want to compete and we want to participate. We just want a little more transparency on the side of the tournament organizers or Pokemon in general, right? Like I
Yeah.
think we would all be able to come together and be content with it if we just knew more, faster. We're going to get the information eventually, but it's just once again too slow. This is the same story every year, and I feel like pre-COVID they were getting way better at it, but it's like COVID. They had 2 years to come out with this information. Uh, and now they just haven't been able to.
I
Like
don't
I
know that
even
we've
mentioned,
ever played a regionals without knowing the invite structure. Like, I don't think that's ever happened before, has it?
we've gotten very close. This doesn't seem new. I think we've gotten close. Maybe someone in the comment section who has better memory than me or has played longer
What
than
time is
Chip
it?
and has
Can I
better memory
DM
would
Chris? No, actually, probably a little late. He would know though.
he probably would know. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he's a night owl. Get him with the DM. See if
I
he's
might
still
hit him
up.
with the DM.
He tweeted like 1 hour ago. He might still be
Oh,
up. But yeah, we just want to know all these things. So we want to know how much the prize supported, even if it's the same, right? If let's say and yeah, so locals, I guess we didn't mention that earlier, but yeah, locals are coming back, cups and challenges. And I think it is early next year. I think they even said not even just next year. I think we know it's going to be like probably January, February. Um, or that's what like a very good estimate is early next year. They're waiting for it the next year for whatever reason. And I kind of mentioned it last week. Like I thought they would do it maybe on a quarterly basis, but we'll be in quarter 2 by the time the next year rolls around. So maybe at the beginning of quarter 3 then. Maybe that is when it would happen then. Um, but but yeah, we just want to know we should know the events in a week when the tournament's announced. We should know how many championship points we need for the invite. We should know how much we're winning for placements at these regional championships and what the kickers are and all of that, even if it's the same. And the fact that they haven't announced it makes me just do think, and maybe it is a little bit different. It's going to be different. I don't know for sure. I would like it to be higher. If it's lower, I think there's definitely, like I said, cause for outrage. But this stuff shouldn't, like, when the new season was announced, that's when all this information should have been out, right? All of it should have been come together as a package. They've had 3 years to prepare for a fresh season of Pokemon. The half season shouldn't have taken that much of their effort to put together. 3 years to come out for a new season of Pokemon. They've had 3 years to get all this information together. So any changes they were going to make, they should just know that these changes are happening or not happening, right? And now we're here, and the regional is 2 weeks away, but we just don't have so much information for not the event, but for the season, right? The event itself, we pretty much have all the information we need, but we want to know the championship points. How much do we need? How many championship points are we getting at the event? We don't know that yet for sure. How much money are people potentially winning? It's the same story every year with Pokemon with this kind of stuff. And like I said, I feel like it was getting better before COVID, but we're just kind of one step forward, two step backs, or like, I don't know, they're just running backwards at this point, I guess.
Well, regardless of how many points we're getting or how much money we're winning, there's going to be a ton of people playing in
A lot, yeah.
Baltimore in a couple weekends. I think, is it at, it's close to 1,000 Masters, right? I don't think it's quite there. They did, I think, just open up more spots
See,
this week.
yeah,
So,
1,240. So it should be 1,100 masters or more than
wow.
1,100 masters. Because, yeah, like I said, 40, that's what I'm saying. 40, 50 juniors and seniors, like 40 juniors, 40 seniors, whatever it is. There's about 100 juniors and seniors combined. It's fine if they pay less than the masters.
So pretty wild.
um,
Over a
a
thousand
lot.
players. Gonna be a massive one. Could be close to that, all-time record. I think it's like 1080 or something like that is like number one most played regionals. So we
Was that the
could,
St. Louis one a while
yeah,
ago?
I think so. Like
Alex Wilson.
2019, 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
So we could see possibly the biggest regionals of all time in just a couple of weekends, and we'll dig next week a bit more into kind of our more specific thoughts on the meta. But let's just talk this week about kind of where things are at and what we're thinking are the top decks that people should be thinking about when it comes to deck building and their testing process. So, obviously, this is going to be the same format as the World Championships. And also, we should mention as well, this is not the only tournament that will be happening this weekend. There's Baltimore Regionals, there will be the Bilbao special event, and there's also a regionals happening in Brazil as well. So, 3 more events happening in this Pokemon Go format, right? The Sword and Shield through Pokemon Go. Same format as the World Championships. And when it comes to Worlds, it is like kind of a special tournament in and of itself. So, how heavily should people lean on those results when it comes to their testing? Should they be doing all of their testing or a high percentage of it against the deck that won Worlds, the Flying Pikachu VMAX Arceus Decidueye deck? Should Palkia still be the number one consideration? Where does Mew kind of fall? We saw Mew kind of sneak in there at the top 8. What are, we've talked a lot in the past several formats about the big 2 or big 3, whatever it is. Where do we kind of find ourselves with that right now?
I mean, I think there is a big three, and it is Palkia, Intellion, and Mew. I think as the top two, and one of those will be the most popular at Baltimore. I'm leaning towards probably Palkia being the number one. As of late, I was a little bit more on the Mew train a little while ago, but I don't think it'll be close. I wouldn't be surprised to see either of them. And then I think Arceus B Barrel, or I should say Arceus Pikachu, because there is like the second, third place list did play the Jolteon. So I should say Arceus Flying Pikachu, whether that be with the Jolteon, which I think will be way less popular, because I think the meta will be pretty broad overall, and I don't think Jolteon will be quite as good as just the B Barrel. So Arceus Peak will be in third place, I think, for most popular, and then, but I think they won't be making up as big of a percentage of the meta as potentially in other top threes and other metas have. I mean, only at Worlds itself, Palkia was by far the most popular deck. I don't even know what the second most popular deck was at Worlds. Like day 1 was like 54% Palkia, day 2 was 40% Palkia. So don't expect that at Baltimore. I think Baltimore will be a lot more wide open, and the top 2 will be probably pretty close, but Peak will be solidly. Arceus Peak will be solidly number 3, and then I think from there, it could really wide open after that. I couldn't even tell you what I think the 4th most popular deck will be. Maybe Charizard and Teleon is where I'm leaning right now, but then you have Ice Rider B Barrel. You have Reggie. Like both those decks have been pretty popular lately. Arceus Duraludon is always a deck that people are going to show up with for some reason. So like the the 4 through 10 spot will be all pretty close, I think, in percentages of that they take up of the meta, and it'll be a pretty open meta overall, I think. So you still want to make sure you beat probably at least Mew and Palkia. If you take a loss to Arc Peak, I don't think it's the end of the world. But if you could beat all three of them and then make sure you don't lose to everything else, I think that's where you want to be sitting for sure.
So we're going to take a look this week at a chart made by Justin Basil. They put this out every single week, I believe. An update on the standard metagame. And this is based on the online events taking place at play.limitlesstcg.com, where like kind of all these online events take place. And this is the meta share based on the number of top 8 placements at standard format events with 50 or more participants. So we've got the top 8 decks here broken out into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 decks being 12 to 23% of the meta, tier 2 decks being 6 to 11%, and then tier 3 being 3 to 5% of the meta. And at number 1, a huge increase, up 17%, is Mew VMAX. Maybe riding on the back of a top 8 Worlds finish, maybe riding on the back of people just not really being sure what to play in this format, and they don't want to play Origin Form Palkia, so they go back to Mew potentially, or maybe I think a lot of people have been trying out kind of this new Mew build that doesn't play Fusion Strike Energy, doesn't play the Meloetta, just plays
Yeah.
the double turbos. I know you played a tournament with this deck, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because that is definitely quite different from how Mew has been played for pretty much the entire existence of the deck, of the archetype.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like going back to the way Mew was played before people caught on to that Meloetta is the best way to play Mew, where it's
Oh
a little
yeah,
not
right.
you didn't have double turbos, but it was like a lot slower, more draw supporter based. That's the kind of power you get when you go with the quad double turbo energy build. Is you get to play Marnies and Averys and the Avery combos with the cross switchers and Echoing Horn. You can do some really cool stuff with that. But I do think the deck is just worse than the Meloetta build because I think your Palkia matchup, I think, really suffers to go out of your way to play this quad DTE build. I think it is pretty solid overall, but I do think you lose quite a few points in the Palkia matchup, which overall not a huge fan of taking a worse Palkia matchup. So it's a cool build, very cool take on the deck. It's pretty solid overall. It is pretty solid, and I don't think if you enjoy the build, I don't think that's a reason to just 100% not play it. But if you really are trying to maximize your chance at doing well at the tournament, I would probably say if you want to really play Mew, I'd go with the Meloetta build still. I don't think it's quite better than Meloetta.
At number 2, we've got the World Champ winning deck up 15%, and that is the Flying Pikachu VMAX. So number 1, number 2, Mew VMAX Flying Pikachu, and then I guess probably no surprise what the number 3 would be is the Origin Form Palkia VSTAR. Maybe a little surprising though, down 13%. That's a pretty steep decrease in just a week's time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is just kind of like the Flying Pikachu is like a newer thing to kind of latch on to. The new take on Mew, plus Mew just being really good in the way the meta's evolving, and then a lot of people shifting to just like other decks, like in the tier 2s and tier 3 categories. Like people are being like, oh, I want to go play Reggie now, because like I feel like Reggie got a huge spike in popularity after Worlds, which is like kind of people seeing the new ways to kind of tackle it and build it and play it. So yeah, I feel like it's just like people shifting away from Palkia a little bit because it has been the number 1 deck for so long that just like naturally happens, especially in the online meta specifically, where not everyone's just trying to like, super try hard, trying to always play the BDIF and win every single tournament.
Right. In the tier 2, we've got 2 decks here. Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX with Origin Form Palkia VSTAR, and then Regigigas. You were just talking about Gigas. I do think it's definitely gone up in play quite a bit. I think Pablo's 17th place finish at Worlds has quite a bit to do with that. There was also another player from Japan who got top 32 with the deck as well. We don't have that list. That one never got posted, so just have
Stomped.
Pablo's to go off of. Oh, but you played this person, right? They had the 4
Half
paths to
Marnie.
peaks. Yeah. So there was like kind of the older build of Regigigas. Pablo on that new technology with the Pokestops, the 4 choice belts, which is definitely something I really liked about his list. Just being able to consistently find that to try to one-hit KO Origin Form Palkia V-Star. And Pablo actually did a pretty good little thread. I don't know if you saw it or not on Twitter,
No, I don't
talking
think
about
so.
why he was even after the results. I mean, 17th place at Worlds is still pretty good if you ask me, but he's still very confident, and that's the deck that he chose to play. Um, and he has his win rate against Palkia posted here was 23-9, a 72% win rate in his testing, which is definitely really. I mean, if it's the most popular deck, if you can take a 70% win rate against the most popular deck, that is pretty good. And I think most people
Yeah.
would be okay choosing that deck just based off that fact alone.
Yeah, especially how polarizing the meta at Worlds was. Like it was, like I said, 40% of the decks I think had. It was either 40% of the decks had Palkia in day two or were Palkia Intellion. I think it was probably had Palkia. Like me playing Palkia Ice Rider B Barrel was part of that percentage. I'm pretty sure. Or like the Palkia Jolteon deck and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure. But I could actually see that not being true, to be honest, because like there was a lot of Palkia Intellion. There's like a disgusting amount of it. So I could see that also not being true, and Palkia Intellion being like 40% of the meta or whatever it was. So yeah, I mean, if you're beating Palkia, that sounds like you put yourself in a pretty good spot for sure.
So we could see Regigigas. And that's just a deck that people like to play. So I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah,
some people just roll up to this regionals
it's fun.
and like, we don't know the invite structure yet. And it's like Worlds is in Japan. People might just be like, you know what, I'm probably not going anyway. Even if I get my invite, it's going to be expensive. I'm gonna play some Gigas, man. And I could definitely see that being the mentality of plenty of people at this regionals here in Baltimore.
Definitely.
I do want to ask you about Ice Rider though. You did play this deck at Worlds. You got top 32 with it. Grant played the same 60, got top 16. How do you feel about the deck right now in this meta after seeing Flying Pikachu win Worlds? Is it something you would consider once again to run it back in Baltimore in a couple weekends here?
I don't think so, just because I think Mew will be too popular. Like Mew was not that popular at Worlds, and that was kind of one of our predictions playing the deck at Worlds. We didn't think Mew would be very popular, and it did make top 8, a couple in top 32, but like that wasn't popular enough for us to be scared of playing the deck at Worlds. But I think Mew is going to be a much bigger threat at uh, Baltimore. So I want to play it, and that's one of the things though. But I'm never trying to just play a deck because I enjoy playing it or I want to play it. I'm trying to find the deck that I think gives me the best chance to win the tournament. And I unfortunately don't think it's Palkia Ice Rider, no matter how much I really do enjoy the deck, because I really do feel like it has a really good matchup spread across the board. I think if I was going to play a deck that lost to me, I'd probably play Urshifu. Huge fan of the Urshifu. That deck's a ton of fun. I think it is really solid. You beat like all of the decks. Like Palkia's like 50-50. You lose to Mew, and then you just literally beat everything else. Like handedly beat everything else. So if I was going to play a deck that just lost to Mew, I definitely would play Urshifu, I think.
So Ice Rider kind of lower on your list right now at the
Yeah.
moment. And then closing this list out here from Justin Basil, we've got 3 more decks in the tier 3. The top, number 6, being Intellion Toolbox, which I would assume is just Intellion Radiant Charizard. And I would assume as well as most people playing 58, 59, if not 60 of the cards that Ross Cotham played to top 16 at the World Championships. And then rounding it out at number 7 and number 8, kind of the redheaded stepchildren of the Pokemon TCG right now, Duraludon VMAX and Blissey V, kind of rounding things out. So I do think Radiant Charizard will probably see a pretty decent increase in play heading into Baltimore, and I
Oh
actually
yeah.
could see it doing pretty well. I do think that there will be some really solid players that choose to. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of like top groups bring something like that to this tournament.
No, I think the deck is insanely good. I think it's like Ross, like this is one of the times where this is like rarely happened in the past. Ross like gave everyone like the perfect 60. Like the list that Ross played is super super good. I think there's like the 2 cards that I think are like potentially replaceable is like the Zigzagoon in like 20 some games I've never used Zigzagoon. So Zigzagoon I think is like the flex spot for me, or like one of the level balls. But besides that, like there's no real reason to change anything, to be honest. Like it's almost like a perfect 60 cards. Ross just gives it to you. Unfortunately, wasn't able to win worlds with it, but I'm sure got to settle for top 16. Sure, get your tournament run with it, and then you give it to everyone else, and now everyone has the perfect 60 for Charizard and Teleon if they want to use it.
Yeah, Ross, you mentioned this last week, tied the winning in, and it's kind of
Yeah.
one of those things. What could have been if that, things go a little bit quicker in that last game? He's able to close it out. Maybe we're talking about Radiant Charizard and not talking that much about Flying Pikachu at
Especially
this
if it like
point.
had especially if Ross was able to take down a flying Pikachu or two, which is definitely possible. The matchup is unfavorable, but actually I don't think it's like awful. And if you really want to improve that matchup, adding something like an escape rope improves that matchup a lot. So if you're looking to step that matchup win percentage up a little bit. Could add the escape rope. Yeah, then no one would be playing Flying Pikachu. If you lose a Charizard, if it lost a Charizard and Intellion at Worlds, there'd be no Flying Pikachus being played at all anywhere for sure.
Right. So I would definitely be interested to see kind of like follow just this Intellion toolbox. It will mostly be based around Radiant Charizard, but there's obviously there's so much you can do. Irida is such an insane card. Intellion, Drizzile, such insane cards. So many things that people can do with this. So maybe we'll see. I guess that's always another question at the end of a format here. Is there any last ditch effort room for creativity from anyone? I mean, we saw Adam Hawkins get top 16 with the good old Aggron VMAX, just I mean, is there something else hidden out there, something spicy that we could see someone make a run, make top 8 with?
I don't know. The Aggron is probably the spiciest thing we would see. And because like even like when you look at like the Jolteons in like Daichi's list, like that's just like it makes sense and it's not something new. We've seen Jolteon pop up in Arceus decks. So that's not like it's like okay, no one else did it, but like it's not like oh my gosh that they reinvented the way to play Arceus or the way to play the Baby Jolteon. It was just like oh they put Baby Jolteon alongside Flying Pikachu. All right, makes sense. Good tech combination around Arceus. So Aggron pretty cool from um Hawkins, but even then it's just like another attacker with that. Like I feel like the format feels pretty juiced at this point. Like I don't think there's much I don't think there's much left. You can see the little things like that, like Aggrons pop up with Arceus, Baby Jolteons make its way into decks here and there. But yeah, I mean I would say probably we're pretty much done. I mean and ready to move on to Lost Origins, thankfully. But who knows? Maybe Baltimore will be the last hurrah. So maybe people will go that extra step to try and make that pet deck of theirs work for this last run of the format. So there might be, I don't have anything, but if anyone's got anything, I may see your time to bring it out. So
Go down swinging in the format. One last stand for
yeah,
your favorite meme deck for sure.
definitely.
Well, Azul, I think that's going to kind of just cover everything for us this week. We're going to be going more in depth into the Baltimore meta next week. We'll probably do a Q&A over on the Twitter. So if you're not following us over on Twitter, be sure to do that at uncommon_energy to follow the podcast. You can also follow myself at TrainerChip and Azul at Azul_GG. And yeah, I don't know. Any other closing thoughts, Azul? Anything else to say about Baltimore before we close it out?
No, I think that does it for me. Catch y'all in the episode next week. Peace.